You know that nagging feeling that something's fundamentally wrong with your life. That persistent sense you're living by rules you never agreed to, chasing dreams that don't actually feel like yours. You're not imagining it. From the moment you could speak, you were systematically taught to look everywhere except within yourself for answers. Parents, teachers, bosses, experts, institutions, always someone else holding the keys to your salvation, success, and meaning. Think about it. When did you last make a major decision without consulting external authorities? When did you stop trusting your own inner knowing and start believing that wisdom lived everywhere except inside you? This isn't accidental. It's the result of a deliberate disconnection from something ancient wisdom traditions understood about human consciousness, something that's been methodically obscured. In 1945, a discovery in the Egyptian desert revealed texts that completely reframe everything we've been told about spirituality, power, and the nature of reality itself. What you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you see yourself and the world around you. The question is, are you ready to remember who you actually are? Picture this: December 1945, near the town of Nag Hammadi in Egypt. A local farmer named Muhammad Ali al-Samman is digging for fertilizer when his shovel strikes something hard. What he unearths changes everything we thought we knew about early Christianity and the nature of reality itself. 13 leather-bound codices, sealed in a jar and buried for over 16 centuries. These weren't just any ancient texts. They were books that someone desperately wanted to survive. The timing wasn't coincidental. These manuscripts were hidden around 367 CE, right when Bishop Athanasius issued his infamous Easter letter, demanding that all heretical books be destroyed. Imagine the courage it took for someone to risk their life burying these texts, knowing that possessing them meant death. They understood something we're only beginning to grasp. This knowledge was so transformative, so dangerous to existing power structures, that it had to be completely erased from human consciousness. What Muhammad Ali discovered that day were the writings of the Gnostics, not the fringe cult that Orthodox Christianity painted them as, but sophisticated philosophers and mystics who claimed direct experience of reality's hidden layers. These weren't people sitting around theorizing. They were practitioners who had developed techniques for perceiving beyond the veil of ordinary consciousness, and what they found there should make every one of us pause and reconsider everything we think we know about the world. The Gnostics described a cosmology that reads like science fiction but feels disturbingly familiar when you really examine your daily experience. They spoke of entities called archons, forces that hijack human perception and create what they termed a bad copy of original reality. Think about that phrase for a moment. A bad copy. Not an alternative reality, not a different dimension, but a deliberately inferior reproduction of something far more magnificent. Now, before you dismiss this as ancient mythology, consider what modern physicists are telling us about reality. We're living in what appears to be a holographic projection where matter is mostly empty space, where observation changes outcomes, where the fundamental building blocks of existence behave more like information than solid particles. The Gnostics were describing the same thing 2,000 years ago. They just used different language. But here's where it gets really interesting. According to these texts, archons aren't necessarily literal entities with horns and pitchforks. They're patterns, forces, systems of control that keep consciousness trapped in limitation, fear, and external dependence. They operate through deception and illusion rather than brute force, because they understand something crucial. A prison you can't see is far more effective than one with visible bars. The most shocking revelation in these texts concerns the nature of the God described in the Old Testament. The Gnostics identified Yahweh, the jealous, wrathful deity demanding worship and obedience, not as the true source of creation, but as the chief archon, what they called the demiurge, a false god masquerading as the real thing. Look at the behavioral patterns described in biblical texts with fresh eyes. This is a deity who demands exclusive worship, threatens punishment for disobedience, requires blood sacrifice, and claims ownership over human souls. In Exodus, we see Yahweh deliberately hardening Pharaoh's heart, just so he can demonstrate his power through plagues. In Numbers, he orders the complete genocide of entire peoples, including children, and infants. This isn't the behavior of an enlightened cosmic consciousness. It's the tantrum of a controlling entity that feeds on fear and submission. The Gnostics understood that archons lack something fundamental that humans possess: creative imagination and the spark of true consciousness. They're essentially cosmic parasites, envious of our ability to create, to love, to transcend limitation. They can only copy, distort, and manipulate what already exists. This is why their systems always feel hollow, why following their prescriptions leaves people spiritually empty, despite outward compliance. Think about your own experience with institutional religion or societal expectations. How often have you followed all the rules, checked all the boxes, done everything you were supposed to do, only to feel more disconnected from your authentic self than ever before? That's not a personal failing. That's the signature of archonic influence. These systems are designed to harvest your energy while keeping you dependent on external validation and authority. The archons operate through what the Gnostics called counter-mimicry, creating institutions and belief systems that superficially resemble genuine spiritual truth, but actually serve to trap consciousness in cycles of guilt, fear, and dependency. They've perfected the art of offering salvation while ensuring you never actually reach it, because a truly liberated human being is their greatest threat. Consider how this plays out in modern religious institutions. You're told you're born sinful and need salvation, but that salvation is always conditional, always requiring intermediaries, always just out of reach, unless you submit completely to the system. You're promised eternal life while being taught to fear death, offered love while being threatened with damnation, given hope while being kept in a state of perpetual spiritual infancy. The Gnostics taught that recognizing these patterns is the beginning of liberation. They called it gnosis, direct knowing that bypasses the filters of conditioned belief. It's not about accumulating more information or joining another belief system. It's about developing the capacity to perceive the difference between authentic spiritual experience and its archonic counterfeit. This ancient knowledge explains why so many people today feel like they're living in a simulation, why authentic spiritual experiences often happen outside organized religion, why the most controlling voices are often the ones claiming divine authority. The archons haven't disappeared. They've simply adapted their methods to modern times, operating through media, education, political systems, and yes, religious institutions that claim to speak for God, while exhibiting all the characteristics the Gnostics attributed to the demiurge. The question isn't whether you believe in archons as literal entities. The question is whether you can recognize the patterns of control, manipulation, and spiritual parasitism that keep human consciousness trapped in limitation. Once you start seeing these patterns, you can't unsee them. And that recognition, that gnosis, is the first step toward reclaiming the creative, conscious, divine nature that no archon, no matter how powerful, can ever truly touch. Now that you understand the archons, these parasitic forces that the Gnostics warned us about, let me show you exactly how their system operates. Because what Thoth revealed about the Matrix isn't some abstract spiritual concept. It's the most practical blueprint for understanding how human consciousness gets hijacked that has ever been documented. Think about this for a moment. Every single culture throughout history has described the same phenomenon using different names. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the sky to rule over humanity. The Hindus spoke of the Asuras, entities that thrived on human suffering and confusion. Indigenous tribes across the Americas warned of Wendigo spirits that consumed human essence. The Gnostics named them archons. These aren't necessarily literal beings floating around in spaceships. They're archetypal patterns, consistent methods of consciousness manipulation that repeat across all human civilizations because they describe real psychological and spiritual dynamics that actually work. Here's how the inversion operates, and once you see this, you'll recognize it everywhere. Human beings are naturally wired for certain spiritual impulses. We instinctively seek unity, love, inner authority, and direct connection to truth. Where you naturally seek unity, connection with others and the world around you, the Matrix promotes separation. It divides you by race, politics, religion, economic class, nationality, even sports teams. It keeps you arguing with your neighbors about surface-level differences, while the real controllers operate completely unopposed. Where you naturally seek love and cooperation, the Matrix promotes fear and competition. Turn on any news channel right now. What's the dominant emotion being broadcast? Fear. Fear of the economy, fear of other countries, fear of disease, fear of your fellow citizens. Fear keeps you looking to external authorities for protection instead of recognizing your own power. Where you naturally seek inner authority, that inner knowing that every child possesses, the Matrix promotes external dependence. From your first day of school, you're conditioned to look outside yourself for answers. Raise your hand. Wait for permission. Don't trust your instincts. Listen to the experts. Follow the rules even when they make no sense. Let me give you a concrete example of how this programming works. Remember, being in elementary school, when that bell would ring, every child in the building would immediately stop what they were doing and move to the next activity. Nobody questioned it. Nobody said, "Wait, I'm in the middle of something important here." You were being conditioned to respond to external signals without conscious thought. That's not education. That's behavioral conditioning identical to what Pavlov did with dogs. And it never stops. As an adult, you still respond to bells. Your phone rings. You answer. Your alarm goes off. You wake up. External signals trigger automatic responses, bypassing your conscious decision-making entirely. The Matrix maintains itself through what Thoth called emotional programs, automatic emotional reactions that keep your attention focused externally instead of developing inner awareness. Anger, jealousy, shame, guilt, fear. These emotions aren't inherently bad, but when they become automatic programs running in the background, they keep you trapped in reactive patterns. Watch how this plays out in modern life. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and immediately you're angry. You see something on social media that contradicts your beliefs, and immediately you're triggered into an argument. Your boss criticizes your work, and immediately you're either defensive or filled with self-doubt. These aren't conscious responses, they're programmed reactions. The most insidious part is how the system co-opts genuine spiritual seeking. You feel that natural impulse to connect with something greater than yourself. So what does the Matrix offer you? Organized religions that place intermediaries between you and direct spiritual experience. You want to improve yourself, so it offers you endless self-help programs that keep you focused on what's wrong with you instead of recognizing what's already perfect within you. You want to understand reality, so it gives you scientific materialism that reduces consciousness to brain chemistry and denies the very awareness that makes science possible. You want community, so it offers you political movements that unite you against other groups rather than recognizing your fundamental unity with all life. Here's what Thoth understood that most people miss. This system only has power as long as people remain unconscious of it. The moment you recognize these patterns, they begin to lose their grip on you. When you see that your emotional reactions are often programmed responses rather than authentic feelings, you can choose different responses. When you recognize that most of your beliefs about yourself and reality were installed by external sources rather than discovered through your own direct experience, you can begin to question everything and find your own truth. This is why awakened consciousness is such a threat to the Matrix. A person who thinks for themselves, trusts their inner knowing, and refuses to be manipulated by fear or external authority becomes essentially ungovernable. They can't be controlled through the usual methods because they're no longer unconsciously participating in the system. But here's the crucial point. This isn't about becoming a hermit or rejecting all social structures. It's about conscious participation versus unconscious programming. When you understand how the game works, you can choose how to play it, rather than being played by it. The Matrix depends on your unconscious participation. It needs you to automatically defer to authority, seek external validation, and feel powerless to change your circumstances. The moment you recognize these as learned behaviors rather than fundamental truths about reality, everything begins to shift. Because ultimately, the greatest secret they don't want you to discover is this: the power they claim to have over you is actually your own power that you've been conditioned to give away. And you can take it back anytime you choose to wake up. But here's where everything changes. Here's where the ancient Gnostics offered something that completely shatters the control system we've been discussing. They didn't just identify the problem. They revealed the solution that's been hiding in plain sight for 2,000 years. The Gnostics spoke of something called the monad. Now, before your mind starts categorizing this as just another religious concept, stop. This isn't what you think it is. The monad isn't another god to worship, another external authority demanding your submission. It's the complete opposite of everything the demiurge represents. Think about it this way. If the demiurge is the force of limitation, separation, and control, then the monad is the infinite source from which all consciousness emerges. It's not sitting on some distant throne judging your every move. It's the ground of being itself, the uncreated, eternal awareness that exists as the very fabric of reality. The Nag Hammadi texts describe the monad in ways that should make every spiritual seeker stop in their tracks. They call it the silent, eternal presence that's infinitely expansive, yet present in everything. It's untouched by limitation because it is the limitless. And here's the part that changes everything. You're not separate from it. You are it, experiencing itself through the lens of individual consciousness. Let me walk you through the Gnostic cosmology, because once you understand this, you'll see why this knowledge threatens every power structure on Earth. According to these ancient texts, reality emanates outward from the monad, in waves of light and energy. Picture ripples spreading across an infinite pond, each wave carrying the essence of the source while gradually taking more defined form. As these emanations move further from the source, they become denser, more structured, until eventually the material world crystallizes into existence. But here's the crucial part. At some point in this process, a lesser force emerged that made a catastrophic mistake. This force, which the Gnostics called the demiurge, looked around at its limited domain and declared itself supreme. It forgot its connection to the infinite source and began imposing order, structure, and hierarchy on everything within its reach. Sound familiar? This is exactly the system we've been dissecting. The matrix of control that convinces you that limitation is natural, that hierarchy is necessary, that you need external authority to guide your life. The demiurge didn't create reality. It hijacked a small portion of it and convinced everyone inside that this was all there was. But you carry both aspects within you right now. There's the fragment that aligns with the demiurgic system, the part of your mind that clings to limitation, that believes in separation, that seeks security through control. This is the voice that tells you to stay small, follow the rules, and never question the authorities. And then there's the spark. The Gnostics called it the divine spark. But I want you to understand what this really means. It's not some mystical concept floating around in religious fantasy. It's the fragment of the monad that exists as your deepest awareness, the consciousness that observes your thoughts, that experiences your experiences, that remains unchanged, whether you're happy or sad, young or old, successful or struggling. This spark has been seeking to remember itself for your entire life. Every moment of dissatisfaction with the conventional world, every time you've felt like there has to be more to existence than what you've been told, every instant when you've glimpsed something infinite behind your own eyes, that's the spark, recognizing its true nature. Awakening isn't about achieving some special state or following a prescribed path. It's remembrance. It's the moment consciousness turns inward and recognizes its own light. The moment you realize that what you've been seeking outside yourself has been the very awareness doing the seeking. When Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you," he wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was pointing directly to this recognition. The infinite isn't somewhere else. It's the very ground of your being, experiencing itself as you. Every mystic who's ever lived has pointed to this same recognition, using different words, different metaphors, but always pointing to the same truth. This understanding completely transforms the spiritual quest. Instead of seeking external salvation, you recognize what's already present. Instead of trying to become worthy of love, you discover you are love experiencing itself. Instead of hoping for future enlightenment, you realize that awareness itself is already enlightened. It's just been convinced it was something else. Now, here's why this knowledge has been systematically suppressed throughout history. A person who recognizes their connection to the infinite source becomes spiritually autonomous. They don't need intermediaries, institutions, or authorities to tell them how to connect with the divine. They become ungovernable in the deepest sense, not rebellious or chaotic, but simply no longer controllable through external manipulation. Think about the implications. If you truly understood that the same consciousness looking through your eyes is the same consciousness experiencing itself as every other being, how could you be convinced to hate your neighbor? If you recognize that your essential nature is infinite and unlimited, how could you be controlled through fear of scarcity? If you knew that your deepest identity transcends all the categories and labels the system uses to divide people, how could you be manipulated through identity politics? This isn't about escaping the world or retreating into some spiritual bubble. The Gnostic path is about bringing the infinite into form, becoming a living portal between the unlimited and the limited. It's about recognizing that you're here not as a victim of cosmic accident, but as consciousness itself choosing to experience reality from this particular vantage point. When you truly grasp this, everything changes. Your job becomes a way of expressing your infinite nature through finite form. Your relationships become opportunities for consciousness to recognize itself in apparent others. Your challenges become the friction that polishes the mirror of awareness until it reflects its own light clearly. The demiurgic system wants you to believe you're small, separate, and powerless. The monad reveals that you're infinite, connected, and the very power that creates reality. The question isn't whether this is true. The question is whether you're ready to remember what you've always been. When you strip away 2,000 years of institutional manipulation, what emerges is a figure so radically different from the sanitized version you've been taught that it becomes clear why his true message had to be buried. The Jesus of history wasn't the meek, otherworldly figure asking you to worship him from a distance. He was a revolutionary teacher whose very existence threatened the entire control structure we explored earlier, because he taught something far more dangerous than any political uprising, that you already contain everything you're seeking. The version of Jesus you know was carefully constructed by the same Roman Empire that executed him. Think about the absurdity of that for a moment. The political system that saw him as enough of a threat to crucify him later became the architect of his legacy. That's like asking your abuser to write your biography. What emerged wasn't preservation of his teachings. It was the most sophisticated co-optation in human history. Here's what the historical evidence actually reveals. Jesus taught direct access to divine consciousness. Not through priests, not through institutions, not through complex rituals or guilt-based confession systems, not coming someday, not in some distant realm requiring intermediaries to access. Within you, right now. When he told his followers, "You are the light of the world," he wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was stating a fundamental truth about human consciousness that the Gnostic traditions understood perfectly, that divine awareness isn't something foreign to be imported from outside, but the very ground of your being waiting to be remembered. This is why he could say with complete confidence, "Greater works than these will you do," because he wasn't claiming unique divine status. He was demonstrating the potential that exists in every conscious being. Look at how he actually operated. Jesus didn't build temples or establish hierarchies. He sought out society's outcasts, tax collectors, prostitutes, the demon-possessed, lepers, not to save them from some external damnation, but because he recognized that those pushed to society's margins often have fewer illusions to protect. Their suffering had already cracked open the false identities that keep most people trapped in surface-level existence. The story of the Samaritan woman at the well perfectly illustrates his approach. Here's a woman marginalized by gender, ethnicity, and social status. Exactly the kind of person the religious establishment would dismiss. But Jesus speaks to her about living water that becomes a spring of water welling up to eternal life. He's not offering her external salvation requiring ongoing dependence on him. He's pointing to an inner source of consciousness that, once accessed, becomes self-sustaining. The water wells up from within. That's the opposite of institutional religion, which requires you to keep coming back for more. His parables weren't cute moral stories for children. They were sophisticated consciousness technologies designed to bypass the rational mind's defenses and trigger direct knowing. When he talks about seeds falling on different types of ground, He's describing the various states of consciousness and their readiness for awakening. The treasure hidden in the field represents the divine awareness buried beneath layers of conditioned identity. The pearl of great price is the recognition of your true nature, worth trading everything you think you are to obtain. This is why the Gnostic Gospels were considered so dangerous that they had to be systematically destroyed. The Gospel of Thomas preserves Jesus saying, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." That's not a message that builds churches or fills collection plates. That's a direct pointer to inner liberation that makes external authority obsolete. The Gospel of Philip reveals even more explicit teachings. Those who say they will die first and then rise are in error. If they do not first receive the resurrection while they live, when they die, they will receive nothing. This isn't about afterlife insurance policies sold by religious institutions. This is about awakening to your deathless nature while still embodied, the very process the ancient mystery schools taught for millennia. Mary Magdalene's Gospel shows her receiving the deepest teachings precisely because she had moved beyond the need for external validation that still trapped the male disciples. When they question her authority to receive such revelations, they're demonstrating exactly the hierarchical thinking that Jesus came to dissolve. But Rome had different plans. Constantine's conversion wasn't spiritual awakening, it was political genius. By co-opting the Christian movement, the empire could transform the ultimate message of inner liberation into just another control system. They took the teacher who said the kingdom of God is within you and made him into an external authority to worship. They transformed his message that you are inherently divine into doctrines declaring you born sinful and unworthy of direct divine access. The councils of Nicaea weren't about preserving Jesus' teachings. They were about standardizing a version that served imperial interests. They literally voted on which aspects of his nature to emphasize, creating the theological framework that would keep people dependent on institutional mediation for centuries. The Gnostic texts were branded heretical not because they were false, but because they were too true. They preserved the practical instructions for the inner work that makes external religious authority unnecessary. This systematic suppression drove the real teachings underground, where they survived in various forms: the mystery schools, esoteric Christianity, certain mystical traditions that maintained the techniques for direct spiritual experience. But the damage was done. The liberator became another figure to worship from a distance rather than an example to follow into your own awakening. Jesus' actual mission was completion, not the creation of another religious system. He came to demonstrate the dissolution of the perceived separation between human and divine consciousness, the very illusion that the matrix of control depends on to maintain its power over you. His resurrection wasn't about proving his unique divine status. It was about demonstrating the indestructible nature of consciousness itself, the deathless awareness that you are beneath all the temporary identities you've been conditioned to mistake for yourself. The template he provided remains available to anyone willing to do the inner work. It starts with recognizing that everything you're seeking already exists within your own consciousness, waiting to be uncovered rather than acquired. It involves seeing through the false authorities, both religious and secular, that profit from keeping you convinced of your own spiritual poverty. And it culminates in the direct experience of your true nature, which needs no external validation because it is self-evident once the illusions are cleared away. This is why his message remains so threatening to every system of control. A population that truly understands its inherent divinity becomes impossible to manipulate through fear, guilt, or false scarcity. They can't be convinced they need saving by external authorities because they've discovered the source of salvation within themselves. This is the awakening that every control system throughout history has worked to prevent, and the very awakening that becomes possible once you see through their deceptions. Now that we've explored who Jesus really was and what the monad represents, you're probably thinking, this is fascinating, but how do I actually access this? How do I move beyond just understanding these concepts intellectually? This is where everything we've discussed becomes intensely practical. Here's what most people miss completely. The monad isn't some distant cosmic force you need to reach through years of meditation or religious devotion. It's literally the ground of your being right now. It's what's reading these words. It's what's been present through every experience you've ever had. The issue isn't that you're separate from it. The issue is that you've been conditioned to look everywhere except where it actually is. Jesus demonstrated a specific process for recognizing this directly, not believing in it, not having faith about it, but actually experiencing the shift from fragmented awareness into unified consciousness. When he talked about the kingdom of heaven being within, he was giving you precise instructions. When he mentioned the single eye that fills the body with light, he was describing an actual physiological doorway you can work with today. Let me walk you through the 5 stages he demonstrated, because this isn't mystical theory, it's a practical roadmap anyone can follow. Stage 1. Silence. Finding the still point. The first stage is learning to separate your awareness from the constant mental noise. Most people think meditation means emptying the mind, but that's backwards. You're not trying to stop thoughts. You're learning to recognize what's observing the thoughts. Here's how you begin. Sit comfortably and breathe naturally. Don't try to control anything. Let the worldly noise continue, the mental chatter, the emotional reactions, the physical sensations. Your job is simply to observe, without getting pulled into any of it. Notice how your mind jumps between past regrets and future anxieties. Notice how it creates stories about everything. Notice how it fragments your attention into 1,000 pieces. But here's the crucial question that changes everything. Who is noticing all this? Who is observing the thoughts, the emotions, the sensations? That witnessing awareness, clear, present, undivided, that's your true self. That's the monad expressing as you. It's been there all along, completely whole and unaffected by whatever drama your mind creates. Stage 2. Unification of inner fragments. Once you can recognize this witnessing presence, the second stage involves gathering all the scattered pieces of yourself back together. This is what Jesus meant when he talked about loving yourself, not the ego-based self-improvement version, but literally integrating every fragmented aspect of your being. Think about how you've split yourself across time. Part of you is still angry about something that happened years ago. Part of you is anxious about next week. Part of you feels guilty about choices you made. Part of you is trying to be someone you're not to gain approval. These fragments drain your energy and keep you from experiencing wholeness. The unification process involves radical self-compassion. You learn to embrace every part of your experience without judgment. The mistakes, the fears, the desires you've been taught to hide, all of it gets welcomed back into conscious awareness. You forgive yourself not because it's the right thing to do, but because holding on to judgment keeps you fragmented. This stage often brings up intense emotions as suppressed material surfaces. That's normal. You're not trying to fix or change anything. You're simply allowing what was divided to come back into unity. Stage 3. Opening the inner channels. As the inner fragments integrate, your body begins to open energetically. This isn't about forcing anything or following complex techniques. It's about breathing into areas of resistance and allowing natural flow to resume. Pay attention to where you hold tension, usually the chest, throat, and forehead. These are places where energy has become blocked through years of suppressing authentic expression. As you breathe into these areas with gentle attention, they begin to soften and open. The most important area Jesus referenced is what he called the single eye, the space between your eyebrows. This isn't about visualization or imagination. It's about bringing your attention to this physical location and noticing what's actually there. For most people, there's a sense of pressure or tingling when they focus here consistently. Don't force anything. Don't try to see lights or have visions. Simply rest your attention in this area while maintaining the witnessing awareness from stage 1. Over time, this becomes a natural focal point where expanded perception begins to emerge. Stage 4, the surrender. This is the stage that can feel most disorienting because it's where your consciousness begins to expand beyond the familiar boundaries of personal identity. Everything you've identified as you, your history, your personality, your problems, your goals, starts to feel less solid and defining. Some people experience this as a gentle melting. Others feel like they're dissolving or losing themselves entirely. Both responses are normal. What's happening is that your awareness is recognizing its true nature as the field that holds all experience, not just the content of your particular life story. This is the passage Jesus demonstrated most clearly, the movement from finite identity into infinite awareness. It's why his teachings emphasized dying to the old self, not physical death, but the death of the illusion that you are separate from the source of all consciousness. If this stage feels overwhelming, return to your breathing and remember that you're not losing anything real. You're simply recognizing what you actually are beyond the stories you've been carrying. Stage 5. Recognition, living as the monad. The final stage is remembering yourself as infinite intelligence expressing through a human form. You realize that what you truly are was never born and will never die. The body, personality, and life circumstances become expressions of something much vaster, like waves on an ocean. This recognition makes you visible in ways that can surprise you. People often react strongly to someone who has stopped seeking approval or validation from external sources. Your freedom can trigger their own sense of limitation. Some will be drawn to your presence. Others may feel threatened by it. The key is staying grounded in your human experience rather than trying to escape it. You're not becoming superhuman. You're becoming authentically human for the first time. The monad doesn't want to leave the body. It wants to express through the body as clearly as possible. This means bringing infinite awareness into practical daily life. How you treat people, how you make decisions, how you respond to challenges. All of this becomes an expression of conscious unity rather than unconscious reactivity. A critical warning: never force this process. Trying to rush through these stages or manufacture experiences will only create more fragmentation. Sincerity and patience are essential. Some people move through all 5 stages quickly. Others work with one stage for years. There's no timeline because you're not actually going anywhere. You're recognizing what's already present. The goal isn't to have mystical experiences or develop special abilities. The goal is to live as what you truly are, which transforms everything naturally and effortlessly. This is the practical path Jesus demonstrated, and it's available to anyone willing to look within, with genuine curiosity about their own true nature. The moment you begin to truly awaken, the world around you starts to push back. This isn't paranoia or imagination, it's the predictable response of systems that have grown fat and powerful, feeding on human unconsciousness. Every institution, every structure of authority, every carefully constructed hierarchy depends on you believing you're small, limited, and in need of external guidance. Think about what happened to Jesus when he started teaching people they could access the divine directly. The religious authorities didn't just disagree with him, they felt existentially threatened. Because if people could enter the monad themselves, if they could experience their own divine nature without priests or temples or elaborate rituals, then entire power structures would crumble overnight. The same dynamic plays out today, just more subtly. When you start questioning the programming we discussed in earlier sections, when you begin to recognize your own divine capacity, the resistance comes from everywhere. Your family starts saying you've changed in a way that sounds like an accusation. Friends roll their eyes when you mention concepts that don't fit their comfortable worldview. Colleagues at work give you strange looks when you stop participating in the collective complaints and victim narratives that bond most social groups together. This resistance isn't personal, it's systemic. These people aren't consciously trying to hold you back. They're responding from their own programming, their own unconscious patterns that feel threatened when someone nearby starts operating from a different frequency. It's like crabs in a bucket. When one tries to climb out, the others instinctively pull it back down, not out of malice, but because that's what the system has conditioned them to do. The programming runs deep. How many times have you caught yourself saying, "I'm only human," when faced with a challenge? That phrase alone reveals how thoroughly we've been conditioned to deny our divine nature. Or, "I could never do that," when witnessing someone operating at a higher level of consciousness or capability. These aren't humble statements, they're unconscious mantras that keep us locked in limitation. The most insidious programming of all is the constant search for God, truth, or power outside ourselves. We've been taught to look to experts, authorities, gurus, institutions, anyone but the divine intelligence that exists within our own consciousness. This external seeking isn't accidental. It's the foundation of every control system ever devised. Keep people believing they need something outside themselves, and you can sell them anything. control them completely. But here's what the controllers never expected. Once someone realizes they can access the monad directly, once they experience their own divine nature firsthand, the entire game changes. You stop being a consumer of spiritual products and become a generator of spiritual power. You stop seeking validation from external authorities and start trusting your own inner knowing. You stop participating in the fear-based narratives that keep most people paralyzed and start creating from a place of infinite possibility. This is when the real resistance begins. Because now you're not just thinking different thoughts, you're operating from a completely different reality. Your intuition sharpens to the point where you can sense manipulation before it reaches you. Your perception opens enough to see through the illusions that keep others trapped. The boundaries between your thoughts and their manifestation in reality start to thin, and what most people call supernatural begins to feel like your natural birthright. The psychological pressure to come back down to earth can be intense. People will insist you've lost your way, that you're being unrealistic, that you need to get your head out of the clouds. They'll use your love for them as leverage, making you feel guilty for growing beyond their comfort zone. They'll question your sanity, your judgment, your character, anything to pull you back into the familiar limitations where they feel safe. Understand this. These are echoes of the old programming trying to maintain itself. When someone in your life reacts with fear or hostility to your awakening, they're not responding to you, they're responding to the threat your freedom represents to their own unconscious patterns. Your very presence reminds them of possibilities they've given up on, dreams they've abandoned, power they've handed away. The key is learning to stay grounded while expanding. This isn't about becoming so spiritual that you can't function in the practical world. True awakening makes you more effective, not less. More compassionate, not more judgmental. More powerful in your ability to create positive change, not more escapist. Jesus demonstrated this perfectly. Despite facing the most intense opposition imaginable, betrayal by friends, persecution by authorities, ultimately execution by the state, he never lost his connection to the monad. He never let the external pressure force him back into the old patterns of fear and limitation. He maintained his awakening not by avoiding the world, but by transforming it through his presence. This is the responsibility that comes with real awakening. Your freedom isn't just for you, it's a gift to everyone around you who's ready to receive it. But you can't force it on anyone. The moment you start trying to convince others to wake up, you've fallen back into the old pattern of seeking external validation. Instead, you simply embody your freedom so completely that it becomes an invitation others can accept or decline. Some will be drawn to the peace you radiate. Others will be inspired by the creative power you demonstrate. A few will be ready to learn the practical steps you've discovered for entering the monad directly. But many will turn away, and that's their choice. Your job isn't to wake up the world, it's to wake up so completely that the world can't help but be affected by your presence. The ultimate goal of all this programming, all this control, has been to keep you dependent on external authorities for truth, on institutions for meaning, on others for validation. Breaking free means reclaiming your sovereignty, your inherent right and ability to access divine intelligence directly, to create your reality consciously, to live from the unlimited potential that exists within your own consciousness. This isn't the end of the journey, it's the beginning of what becomes possible when human beings remember who they really are. Living as the monad isn't about becoming someone new. It's about stripping away everything you were told you had to be and rediscovering who you've always been underneath the programming. This is your divine birthright, not something you earn, not something you achieve, but something you remember. The moment this recognition dawns, everything shifts. Not because the world changes, but because you see it through different eyes. You realize the divine isn't somewhere else, waiting for you to be worthy enough to reach it. The divine is you. It's the consciousness reading these words right now. It's the awareness that notices your thoughts, the presence that experiences your emotions, the life force that beats your heart without you having to think about it. When you live from this understanding, decisions stop being battles between what you want and what you think you should do. Instead, they flow from a deeper knowing, the same intelligence that grows trees and orchestrates the movement of planets. You start trusting the wisdom that's been operating your body and mind all along, the same wisdom that Jesus accessed when he said the Father and he were one. Your relationships transform completely. Instead of approaching people from needing them to validate you, complete you, or fill some void, you meet them as expressions of the same consciousness you are. Love stops being something you try to get and becomes something you naturally are. Conflicts don't disappear, but they become opportunities for deeper understanding rather than battles for who's right. Work becomes something entirely different. Whether you're sweeping floors or running a company, you're no longer performing for approval or grinding through obligation. You're expressing divine intelligence through whatever form presents itself. Creativity flows naturally because you're not trying to impress anyone or prove your worth. You're simply allowing what wants to emerge through you. This is where you start seeing the hidden patterns everywhere. The synchronicities that were always there but you dismissed as coincidence. The subtle energies between people that your logical mind couldn't explain. The underlying intelligence orchestrating events in ways that serve everyone's highest good, even when it doesn't look that way on the surface. Problems that seemed impossible from the ego's perspective become workable, not because they're suddenly easy, but because you're accessing a different level of intelligence. The ego sees obstacles and thinks in terms of force, manipulation, or defeat. The monad sees the same situation and perceives possibilities the mind couldn't grasp. Solutions emerge that serve everyone involved. Paths open that weren't visible before. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about alignment, living from the source instead of from your programmed reactions. When you mess up, and you will, you don't spiral into shame and self-attack. You recognize it as part of the learning process and course correct from love rather than fear. The kingdom Jesus spoke about isn't some distant heaven you reach after death. It's the reality that's available right now, in this moment, when you recognize what you actually are. Prayer stops being about asking some external deity for favors and becomes communion with your own deepest nature. You're not petitioning someone else for help. You're aligning with the infinite intelligence that you are. Service becomes natural expression rather than obligation. When you know yourself as life itself, serving life in all its forms isn't something you have to force yourself to do. It's as natural as breathing. You find yourself naturally supporting others' awakening, not by preaching or trying to convince them of anything, but simply by being authentic. Your freedom gives others permission to explore their own. This is ongoing work. Awakening isn't a one-time event where suddenly everything is perfect forever. It's a continuous deepening of alignment with your true nature. Some days you'll feel completely connected to the divine intelligence within you. Other days you'll get caught up in old patterns and forget who you are. Both are part of the process. Challenges don't disappear when you live as the monad. If anything, life might present you with bigger challenges because you're capable of handling them from a deeper place. But difficulties become opportunities for greater integration rather than evidence that something's wrong. Each challenge becomes a chance to embody your divine nature more fully, to demonstrate the same mastery Jesus showed when he remained centered in the midst of crucifixion. The beautiful thing about living this way is that you don't need anyone's permission or validation. You don't need special training, expensive courses, or membership in any organization. You don't need a guru, priest, or intermediary. The connection is direct and immediate because you are what you're seeking connection with. This naturally serves others without you trying to convert or convince anyone. When you live from authentic freedom, people sense it. Some will be drawn to understand what's different about you. Others will be threatened and try to pull you back into old patterns. Both responses are perfect. Your job isn't to save anyone or prove anything. Your job is simply to be who you actually are. Jesus wasn't showing off when he performed miracles. He was demonstrating what becomes possible when a human being fully embodies their divine nature. He lived as proof of what's available to everyone, not just the spiritually gifted, not just the religiously trained, but every human being who's willing to look past the conditioning and recognize their true identity. The throne of God was never in some distant heaven. It's been in your heart all along, waiting for you to stop looking everywhere else and recognize what's already present. The kingdom is here. The power is here. The love is here. You are here. This journey of awakening is both deeply personal and universally shared. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it." Your recognition matters, not because we need validation, but because every person who awakens to their true nature adds to the collective transformation happening on this planet right now.